at what we call the Human Development Sector Committee. So we have 3 of these committees, one on governance, one on economic development, and another on human development. And that Human Development Sector Committee, administratively, it's chaired by the Department of the Premier, and it brings together the Departments of Education, Social Development, Health, Community Safety, and Cultural Affairs and Sport. So the ministers and the senior officials in those departments will all have heard of it. They will all have given their input. Having said that, it is quite true that our own education department is very consciously focused on the sanctity of teaching within school hours. You know, in terms of their own strategic objective in improving education outcomes, they are very focused on improving numeracy and literacy levels, and there is a strong feeling in the department that that's the priority. And I do know sometimes it's a frustration with the other departments about getting access to learners during school time. As far as the Department of Social Development is concerned, a lot of what they do has a great bearing on the policy, as you will have seen in the high-level sketch of the policy framework, in terms of early childhood development, life skills, as was talked about, and also this youth development strategy, Patricia, which you mentioned, and which came before that Human Development Sector Committee just last week, in fact. So it's still got to go through a further process of refinement before it gets to Cabinet. It will also concentrate very heavily on a sort of a family strengthening approach, and there is a directorate within social development devoted entirely to that, as well as the Mod Centre program. And Carl, I think that probably comes to your question about content, what's available, how do we find out about the program. It's driven by the Department of Cultural Affairs and Sport. I think there's a lot of pressure on the Mod Centre program to show that it works as a flagship project for social inclusion, which is difficult because you don't often in government have that freedom to test and fail. You've got to show results, and so there is some pressure from that point of view. My understanding of the program at this stage is that it is focused more so now on those sorts of diversionary activities through cultural expression, sport, but that life skills will be more systematically thought out and integrated into the program in due course. But I can certainly sort of have an offline with you about who to be in touch with from the Department of Cultural Affairs and Sport to find out more information. We also do, as I think I briefly alluded to in my presentation, have a partnership with Ideas 42, which is engaged on a behavioural economics behaviour change project with the Western Cape government. It has 4 focus areas, one of which is on climate change, another is on healthy lifestyles, which itself has 2 components. One is sort of getting fitter, a Walk for Health program, which involves our senior officials and politicians. Another focuses on intergenerational sex as one of the drivers of HIV transmission rates in the Western Cape. And then the other looks at mod centres, at improving attendance at these mod centres, and that will in due course also give us further information, I suspect, on to what degree these centres have affected positive behaviour changes.
Thanks. Tracy, to say.
I wanted to talk about this issue of measuring effectiveness. And I think from a public health point of view, clearly it is a critical issue. But I think the comments that I made earlier around the complexity of this area is a challenge in that causality is not linear. And, the risk factors also are, also you can't really say if I do this one thing, it will result in this. There is a multiplier effect. It's a relatively complex area that we're still grappling with. So one of the things that we are doing from a population point of view, clearly we're very interested on population effect, is with the funding that we received from the IDRC, is that I didn't get time to really speak about some of the ideas that we have, is to create this hub of information that triangulates a whole lot of information from multiple sources, one of which is we're going to be doing household surveys where we're going to be going to homes in this 3-year period, repeatedly going there, asking the same questions to try and see issues of dosage. So we first is to understand what is happening so that we could ask the relevant questions to people to say, well, what have you been exposed to? I mean, I spoke about coverage. At the end of the day, if you are going to have population effect, you do need to have quite high coverage. So this is what I was talking about, and it's not going to be a silver bullet even from measuring effectiveness. It's going to have to be this triangulation of multiple data sources using both quantitative and qualitative information to try at best to infer. Obviously, these sort of changes that we're talking about are changes that will take a long time to actually show up. So those are some of the challenges. And initially, we might start talking about process stuff, exposure stuff, and with time, I think we will start seeing some of the population effects that we are interested in. So as I say, if you have these colloquia I think this is your first one, hopefully. Is this the second one? If you have another one, hopefully we will then talk to that a bit more once we've kind of crystallized our thinking and have some data to show some of these issues.
Right. Unfortunately, we are definitely out of time. We've kind of gone 15 minutes over, but it's been some really interesting quality presentations. So if you have further questions or comments, we're about to go into a tea break, so I'm sure the presenters wouldn't mind, and sort of like informal dialogue afterwards. If we can take a tea break until about 11:05, so you have 15 minutes, and then we're going to go back into parallel sessions. Just the breakaway room isn't here today. We've actually moved it downstairs because it's a better venue downstairs, so it's where the book launch took place last night, but for those who don't know, just ask reception, it's on the ground floor. In that venue downstairs is going to be the panel 11, which is dealing with youth and community-based violence. Up here is going to be the panel that's the Violence Prevention for Urban Upgrading panel, where they're going to talk about the work that they've been doing. So if you can please be at the start by 11:05. Thank you so much.